You could either be a product of your environment or your environment could be a product of you. Like, because if you're basing your whole self-worth and how you feel about yourself on a like, the problem is that people can't separate themselves from the phone to reality, who they actually are. That this is a family, this is a we are a unit. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, we're going to put all that BS aside and we are going to focus on the goal. The goal is to help you in our program win on the mat and in life.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Burn Down Podcast. Today we have an in-studio guest. He is the head wrestling coach at Hunter College. He is a mindset coach, a performance, strength, and conditioning coach. That is no other than our guy, Nick Coco, rocking the Burn Down Podcast t-shirt. What's up, Nick?
How we doing today, fellas?
Hey, man, we're doing fantastic.
Love it. Love the shirt, man. I got this. I got the regular Burn Down logo. He's got the Cheers Chin Chin Salute. Eric,
I screwed up.
unfortunately screwed up. Didn't bring the polo. But
Whoopsies.
you know what? That's actually a good shirt. We could put a little Burn Down Podcast right there on the logo. Just take, put a sticker on there.
BDP
Done.
of the chest.
Yeah,
Put a
man.
sticker on there. Done.
Little BDP of the
That's
chest.
it. Nick, what's up, bro? Yeah, let me move this a little bit closer to you.
Thank you.
Audio quality is pristine when you talk right in the microphone.
Yeah, you got to get them lips right up against it, baby.
So first of all, fellas, I want to thank you guys for having me here.
Of course, bro.
I'm very grateful for the opportunity to come on your podcast, and I hope that we can get out and get this message to some more people who are hopefully strength and conditioning, wrestling, athlete-minded, trying to figure out and find out some more ways to improve, maybe their kids' game or their own game, but hopefully we can get them there. The reason I chose this shirt is because, one, I love the shirts.
The fit's pretty good. It's an athletic fit.
Hit a couple hammer curls before
It fits pretty damn good. Okay.
And just the saying, right? The chin chin, the salute.
Cheers,
Every time.
Chin Chin Salute, baby.
Because it's every episode we used to end it. I used to say something different, and then Justin was starting saying something different. I'm like, you know what? Why don't we just say all three and just put it on a T-shirt, and then you just bang it out in one shot.
Hey, you know what's funny too is when looking back on it, I go,
I don't hear anything in here.
You don't hear anything?
No. Yeah, there you go. Turn it up a little bit.
I hear it. Yep.
Yeah, now we're fucking cooking with gas.
What's funny is that we have this Cheers Chin Chin Salute shirt, and it was just something that Eric, rolled off the tongue at the end of an episode, and it stuck. But now that we're looking back at it, cheers is, the American way of saying a toast. Chin Chin is the Italian way of saying a toast. Eric is Italian, right?
Italian.
Prost is the German way. So what we should have done was cheers, chin, chin, Prost, because it's American, Italian, German, right? American for everybody, Italian for Eric, German for me. That would have made more sense.
Yeah.
But that's not how it came out. It came out cheers, chin, chin, salute, and that's what stuck.
Sounds a little bit better, I think.
It
rolls off the tongue.
But what's funny? If you would have said, what happens if you would have said cheers, chin, chin, Prost first?
Yeah, maybe.
Would that have sounded better because we didn't even hear about the salute part?
I don't know. I don't know if my fellow Italians would buy it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, but chin chin's Italian.
I know. But it's basically all.
Salute is also.
There's a big debate. There's a big debate between the Centan versus the Centani.
Of course.
So this is a huge debacle between, there's a lot of, this is how the real Italians say it. This is how the Italian Americans say it. So there's all this,
animosity. Yeah, it's like the when you say sauce and gravy. That's all.
Let's not open up.
Nick is itching.
Let's not open up that can of worms, okay?
Well, last name Coco. He can rightfully speak. So
I'll give us an analogy for the listeners, in the sport of wrestling, because we were speaking a little bit before, and Justin was telling us, that friend that you have that always tries to wrestle you. Well, he had that friend. But in wrestling, just like in basketball, there's terms for techniques that we use, say, in New York. And then Pennsylvania uses a different term. And then the Midwest. So there's a debate on, and everything we can relate this to there. It's no, we say it here I'm trying to think of one that applies, chicken wing versus Gable. The wrestler, Gable is a coach. He was a famous wrestling coach for the University of Iowa. So they refer to this as a Gable technique. And then here on the East Coast, they sometimes refer to it as a chicken wing or an arm bar. So the point is that there's semantics and there's this circular arguing about this is what it's called. No, this is what it's called. But really, we're all doing the same thing, right?
Yeah,
I
no,
guess it could be anything.
I hear
That's why
you.
we're
I
here.
hear you. You know, I hear you. There's like same thing with basketball. Some people call it a box out. Some people call it a block out. But it's the same. It's the right block out. But you go blocks out. But if you go, Midwest, they'll call it a block out.
Yeah, no, none of that.
Same thing, right?
That's
All right.
So
we got Nick Coco in the studio here.
Yes.
We want to learn a little bit about Nick, what his background, where he is today, how he got there. So you are the head coach for Hunter College Wrestling Organization. What's that like?
day to day is great. My favorite part of coaching is building the relationships, working with the athletes, and just being able to relate to them.
Yeah.
So I really do. My favorite part of my job is coaching, like the X's and O's, the box out, the plays, right? The moves.
now, are there plays in wrestling? Like, there's plays in team sports, right? But are there?
Wrestling is a team. Is wrestling considered a team sport?
I mean, technically, I guess so, because you have individual matches, and then ultimately it's the team that wins. It's not like you may win your match, but your school might lose the game. I don't know.
And you guys know as athletes, right? Primarily football and basketball and the team element. What's great about wrestling, it has both. So it's very similar to like a track and field in that way, where you're going to have your individual score and then you're going to have the team score. So it's a really good sport. I think the best is when it's coupled with that team sport. So say we have an athlete and they are a football player and then have them do wrestling, because they both complement each other really well. But where I'm going with this is that, yeah, there's both. And that's what makes it great, because it's you all build each other up. It's the camaraderie.
So now what would be like the equivalent of the X's and O's in wrestling?
Yeah, so the original question was the match strategy. So I'll give you guys a few examples because you're sports fans, the listeners. So like in the Big Ten, right? I'll name 3 schools: Iowa, Oklahoma's Big 12, and then Penn State. Obviously, these are huge wrestling programs.
Yeah, Iowa's probably the biggest, right? Isn't Iowa they're known for wrestling?
Is it? Are they? Oh, I had no idea.
Corn and wrestling, but now.
Well, aren't they what? No, that's Nebraska. They're the Cornhuskers.
Oh yeah, sure.
They're also solid. These are
Iowa are the Hawkeyes.
The Hawks, yeah, Hawkeyes.
Hawkeyes, that's right.
So we're the Hawks. Hunter's the Hawks.
It's a good name, Hunter Hawks.
Yeah,
we're Hawks. Located in the city, 68th and Lexington. It's heart of the Upper East Side.
How's that commute?
It's interesting. You see a lot of characters.
I'm sure you do.
All right, so go back to the X's and O's with the match play.
So there are. So I was bringing up those big time schools because a lot of those schools have actually popularized match strategy. Just like there's like football strategy, like you got a run team, you got a passing team, and there's these styles and identities. So same thing in wrestling. We're on Iowa. It's more of an attack style. It's a heavy hand fighting for the listeners who are familiar with wrestling. Very aggressive.
Now describe hand fighting versus...
Hand fighting is when your buddy used to try to pull on your head and snap you down or grab your arm.
Okay, so you're not trying to go for the legs takedown. You're going to try to pull them down and get on top of them?
Offensive lineman. That's hand fighting. The blocking, right? The bicep control, the push-pull, the snap. All that. Trying to beat the shoulder.
Okay. Swim move?
Swim move. A little spin action if we're going back. You remember those days?
Remember Dwight Freeney was the best at the spin move. He was the nastiest.
It's funny. We used to use that a lot in like posting up in basketball. Swim move.
Sure.
You do swim,
Sure.
But the key is you do the opposite of a swim move. So instead of swimming over the top, they'll call you for a foul because you're pushing down. So you go up. You come up and under. It's like if somebody's trying to box you out like this, like if you're coming across the lane and they're trying to block you from coming across the lane, you come up under their arm and then post up. So you kind of swim up as opposed to swimming down. Same technique, though. To get position on a guy, same exact technique, just different sport.
I remember when I played football and Dwight Freeney was up and coming, and he was I don't know if you guys remember, he was the DN for the Colts, the fastest, and I believe he was the first one I really realized
fastest DN in the West.
The importance of a swim move, because he used to do a little spin fucking swim move, and I'm like, damn. So when I was in PAL football, I was a D end and a tight end, so I would do that. And it worked out every time.
And I'll add on this because I know we have some avid fans here for the NFL. So a lot of these guys, like you guys know, of course, like from the Patriots, Stephen Neal.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of our time, but he was a Olympic level wrestler. He was a very high level competitive wrestler before joining the Patriots.
Really?
So that's like a little, obviously Ray Lewis, we all are familiar with, multiple time wrestling state champion. So
Really? I didn't know that either.
Brock Lesnar went the opposite way.
yeah, he went the entertainment route.
Yeah.
We guys should get him as a guest.
He's a fucking animal.
Dude, I actually heard a thing about him on Joe Rogan where he's like a absolute genetic freak.
Oh, yeah.
Like the guy is a superhuman.
Huge fan right here.
Superhuman.
Absolutely.
When you were in college wrestling or even in high school, did you ever go against like some genetic freaks?
That you were just like, there's no way.
Absolutely. So, as you guys can see, I used to jump weight classes all the time because as a bigger wrestler, there was more room to maneuver. What I mean is, like, if you're above 6 foot, let's say, you may go 89. You could go up to heavyweight. Heavyweight is Brock Lesnar's weight class, 285 pounds.
But what does heavyweight start at? 220 something?
220 is the minimum.
So could you imagine that you're let's say you're like 230, 235 at 6'2". That's a big dude. That's a big dude, okay? But you got to go against somebody who's 6'5", 280.
Mm-hmm. Any good stories like
You're
that?
You're kind of like...
of course.
Yeah, did you ever wrestle heavyweight?
And I know there's a lot going on in the social media world right now. Not going to name any names, but just because, and as a strength and conditioning advocate, as a performance coach, this is just a small part of the equation. Like you could look like Schwarzenegger in his prime. You could be a super freak like Lesnar is, but not only is he like an athletic specimen, but his technique, his skill, his ability to drive, it's just because somebody has great numbers doesn't mean it's going to translate automatically to basketball,
right,
or football, right? So
yeah, you can have great combine numbers, but then be shit.
I just don't know why this is like still being perpetuated. Like, oh, he's like muscles equal fighting, muscle equal being the best football player. Like,
no, they help, but they're not like everything.
I feel like a lot of it goes with like technicality and like form and I guess maybe discipline, if in a sense.
Sure. Look at basketball, right? They always say like, "Oh, you can't teach height." Like, yeah, height helps, but you can't be, like look at Manute Bol and then his son Bol, who's 7'5". He's the tallest guy in the NBA, but he's not even top 25.
Yeah. Like, you know what? Our program and with the help of my assistant coaches, we've actually have used a lot of basketball, like Coach K, obviously quotes from like Kobe, Jordan. Like these AI, like
Jim Valvano probably too.
And I just love a lot of the team stuff that they do. And I believe in our sport and wrestling, we need to, I'm a big believer in like beg, borrow, and steal, right? So like why don't we give people's flowers while they're here? Like if they do something really well and a win for them is not automatically a loss to me, right? Mm. And there's a lot of like division with the sports. I think that wrestling coaches and parents and fans, like, there's a lot we can learn and utilize from the basketball, from football, from how they run their programs, from how the coaches.
You're talking about as a team,
as a program,
just like the mindset and the disciplines of
communication
of the sports. That's of just being an athlete.
That's one thing that impresses me a lot with basketball players while we're here is that they like communicate on the court. A good team.
Yeah, you have to.
But
you have to.
I think we can. There's things we can use in that, and I think that they can help in a coaching sense. And you were asking about strategy earlier. So I was bringing up Iowa, very aggressive, physical.
Yes. We keep going off topic.
But
that's what we do.
That's what we do.
It's all good. And then traditionally, like I'll use Oklahoma, like the Cowboys, Oklahoma State specifically. Mm-hmm. They were more of like a slick, unorthodox, like funky type of style, meaning less strength and power and more like flexibility and maneuvering. So
okay.
That's the difference. And as somebody who's done different sports as well, wrestling, I have a specialized, went to college at Brockport up there. And wrestling, it doesn't matter your size. So you could be, like we said, Brock Lesnar, or you can be like those guys at the Derby. Like there's a space and place for you. It doesn't matter what size or weight. The coach will figure it out,
So did you ever wrestle? You were mentioning that, if you're over 6 foot, you have the most flexibility to change weight classes because you can be, let's say you're 6'1", you can go down to $180, but you can also go up to 220, and that's what, 3 weight classes?
At least, yeah. There's
So have you ever done something like that? Because you're above 6 foot. You're like, what, 6 foot, 6'1", something like that? So you're a bigger guy. Have you done fluctuations like that?
Typically, yeah. I in high school, I jumped around a little bit with the weight classes, and in college a little bit as well. But yeah, sometimes they'd be like, hey, they don't have someone at like 220, you got to go wrestle. You don't have somebody at heavyweight, you go wrestle. And so back then it was just like, oh, okay, my coach told me to do it, I do it.
Yeah, now go eat 9 cheeseburgers to make your weight.
I was in actually like a heavyweight game mode. Like what back then, because I wrestled 215, I was like 210. So there was you would see me in the summer, I would blow up, and then when I was getting closer to weight, I would get skinny. So
Yeah, well, it's like that mindset. Because I remember I had a buddy in high school who was really good at wrestling, but like the mindset before getting ready for a match. Because like you said, I would see him on the weekend like eating McDonald's, and then the rest of the school week he's in sweatpants. He's drinking water. He's like not talking to anybody. He's like, "Don't talk to me. I have to lose 5 pounds in like 24 hours." Like, so how do you get your? How do you
become miserable?
Yeah, how do you do that?
So while we're here on this topic,
By the way, we have wine glasses, dude.
I was just going to say.
I saw you have a brown paper bag,
and I also want to move this because I don't want him to get excited. And
yeah.
I did this swim move on a guy.
Yeah, I know.
Bang.
Before we get into the mindset of preparing for a match, I know you brought something, so I wanted to see what it was, so we can enjoy some.
Yeah, we were told to bring out wine glasses.
Yeah.
So it's just really inspired by the shirt. I think I saw the Italian writing, and I wanted to give you something from Italy, special.
Let's go.
So,
oh boy, is this Italian wine?
It's gotta be.
Is this Italian wine?
Yeah, look at that.
Yes, it is.
So my mother always taught me you never show up to somebody's house empty-handed.
Amen to that,
Bro, you know how many times I dropped that line?
So we never show up anywhere without at least bringing something, especially when people are welcoming us in the joint.
That's it.
So this is
Appreciate it. Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
Give me a little skin on that one.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. This is Libero. This is a Brunello di Montalcino 2016 for the people that are listening that cannot see it. And it actually, so one of the things that I talk about a lot, and I've mentioned this on the show, I mentioned this to everybody since I came back from Italy, is that if you're getting Italian wine, look for the DOCG. And DOCG, it is an Italian acronym, so it's like Denominazione di Origine Controllata, garantita, which basically means like this is guaranteed to be in a controlled environment, which means less sulfites, less sugars, all that stuff, right? So you don't get hangovers from this stuff, which is fantastic.
That's how you know with the label, right?
Yeah, I always say look for this.
Yeah,
look for this.
There's some great accounts on social talking about like even with food too.
Let's open this.
And for the people that are watching, Nick is obviously a cigar enthusiast. He loves cigars. He loves the Blueprint. Quick plug. But being in the fitness world, being in wrestling, he's got to be at his high peak performance. So that's why he will not be smoking a cigar tonight, unfortunately.
And
not that cigars hinder anything.
No.
There's a time and place for everything.
Sure.
No, I think it's more so.
It's like when Ruben Studdard wouldn't smoke cigars when he had to perform for his voice.
Right.
Similar to
I would probably say it's more so not the fact that it'll like hinder the performance, but it's more so that you have a large following of kids. Right, that you're coaching kids, you're coaching the parents of kids, and kids watch you and learn how to. So, cigar smoking is not for kids. This is not a kids show. Cigar smoking is not a kids thing. Cigar smoking is for adults. So, the fact that you coach kids wouldn't be good for a kid to watch you and be like, oh, he smokes cigars. I want to go smoke cigars. So, I think it's more so like the kid
for
aspect.
The mature audience.
Yeah.
Right? This is a mature audience.
Nick is he's a very aware person. He gets it. And I know we're going to eventually go down to the line of mindset and kids growing up nowadays and how you put them in their place. And I can't wait to talk about that.
But I'm sure that he's going to share some of these clips, and you don't want kids watching your clips on your platform with you and a cigar in your mouth. Yeah. So let's open this and pour it out, and then we can hear more about this mindset.
So what are you going to
say? Cigars, wine. These are great things. These are things that with moderation and balance can bring people and families together. I'm a big believer in that.
Most definitely.
We talked a lot about the camaraderie. You guys bring that up a lot.
For sure.
How cigars bring people together. And I think there's value in that. And I feel we're going away from that, obviously, with too much screen time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's
screen time
there's stats on the loneliness epidemic, and you know, doing something like this is great. It's great because you're having a chance to sit down and catch up and talk about current events and other things that are going on in the cigar world.
Look, like we always say, look what we're doing. You know, we all three of us enjoy cigars, and we're having a great conversation. We're learning a few different things, and you're in the studio, which makes it even better.
And with the thank you, sir. With the history of vino, I mean, as an Italian or an Italian American or a European,
please taste the wine, sir.
Thank you, sir. Give it a
little swirl.
Give it a little swirl.
Give it the whole experience.
Make sure that the bottle is good.
Awesome.
That'll do. Okay.
Perfect.
So, where was I going? Oh, it doesn't matter who you are or where you're from. I believe that you should be educated on your culture, on your family history, on your backgrounds. And I believe it's a good thing to, and this will tie into kind of where I'm going with it with athletes, but your identity is very important. And if you don't know yourself, how are we going to get the most out of you?
For sure.
You need to know who you are and
Need
what
to
you
know,
stand for.
Yep.
And it doesn't need to be, Justin's doesn't need to be Nick's, and Nick's doesn't need to be Eric's, but you need to have we talk about this a lot from the jump. Who you are, what you stand for, what do you want? So you need to know those things before we start getting into the technicalities.
For sure.
You need to know those things about yourself. So that's why I'm a fan. I think, and this is consumable art.
Well, consumable art, baby. You said it best.
Oh.
Well, cheers to that.
Little chin chin.
Chin chin.
Salud.
Cheers. Salud, my
Cheers.
boys. All right, so I wanted to get into, you were going on before we poured the wine, the mindset and the preparation of getting ready for matches, losing weight, 24 hours, 48. Like, this is not how do you prepare yourself for that? Like, what's the mindset? Because you're a big mindset guy, obviously. So I want to get into your brain about that.
So just like many things in society today, but this I would say is for a positive. This has changed our approach and our thought process as we've learned more about the sports science, as we've learned more about nutrition, how these things affect us mentally and physically. So back in our day, guys were losing weight and eating McDonald's and running around with the plastic bags. All that, you're gonna hear it here first. Garbage. Don't
pun
do that.
intended.
Yeah.
Literally,
The garbage bags are meant for garbage.
don't do that. And I know both of you gentlemen are very into fitness. The same approach. You have to be like a science. You have to be very big on the macros, your protein, obviously, and then more as we get into it, the carbohydrates. When do you reduce them? When do you increase them? But before I get into all that, so one of the videos I did that's recently on social was why cutting weight sucks. And it got a lot of traction because it's a very polarizing topic. It's so interesting you bring it up. But I wanted to bring attention
I'm very intrigued by this stuff. I love this
so
stuff.
In our industry, it's a very popular topic. It's a very controversial topic. You have the traditionalists, and then you have like the innovators. I would like to say I'm in the middle. I believe in old school values with new school technology.
So traditionalist being
like weight cutting is gonna teach them how to be tough,
and then new values being
we're gonna teach them how to diet appropriately and hydrate appropriately, so then we can get them down to that said weight class.
And you're kind of in the middle where it's like you want to learn you want to learn the traditional values of the discipline, knowing like, all right, you have a regimen, you got to stick to it, and it's gonna suck, but we want to make sure that we're doing it properly so that we don't completely deplete you of all the nutrients that you need, and then you go out there and you can't perform. You can't do what you're asking your body. Your body can't do what you're asking it to do because you have no nutrition in there.
Yeah, and we can reinforce those values. It doesn't have to be extreme weight cutting to reinforce values like discipline, consistency, hard work. You got gentlemen are familiar with that. These are the building blocks of anything you want to do. And that's why I'm so passionate about coaching and wrestling and why I promote it so much. And because we view it, our program, as a vehicle to be successful in life. So you could use a lot of different things, but wrestling is just one way that we can teach a person, a young man, to learn how to be disciplined, manage time, all the things that make us successful in our careers. We're just going to use those lessons and we're gonna make sure they see how it can help them after graduation in life, long term. And you're an athlete yourself with the basketball background. Do you feel you learned like a lot of those things from basketball? Student athlete.
I say it quite a bit that being
Get involved. I love it. Passing it around.
I know. I say it quite a bit that sports are a great learning experience for later on in life. Okay, it teaches a lot of things and a lot of values that you need in order to be successful later on in life, and which is why I tell my wife, and we're both in agreement with this. She wasn't an athlete, but she agrees with me with sports because I've told her all the experiences I have, and this is why we're in agreement that when we have kids, they will be in sports. We will put them in every single sport, and whichever one they love the most, we'll go with that. But the point being that it teaches you how to be part of a team. Okay, it teaches you how to be coachable. It teaches you the reward of hard work.
Yeah.
It teaches you discipline. It teaches you character. It teaches you a lot of things. It teaches you how to handle pressure, how to handle frustrations when things aren't going well. It teaches you a lot of these things that you need to be successful later on in life.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How do you feel about that, Eric?
I mean, I think it's just
Who's interviewing who here? This is he's the guy. He's asking us. That's great.
I got
experience.
and I'm gonna get connected. I want to see what you guys.
You see him on the lives and stuff in the podcasts. He's always interactive, but which I appreciate. But no, I think it's very similar to what you guys are saying. It's a pillar. Like, I'm not gonna have kids and just let them be couch potatoes and just gain up a lot of screen time. They will be in sports, whether it's a guy or a girl, whether it's cheerleading, baseball, softball, basketball, football, whatever it is, because the biggest thing for me, it teaches you discipline. You have to be there at a certain time. You have to listen to somebody. You have to follow an authority figure. You have to learn these avenues besides learning from your parents. You have to learn how to listen to other people, whether authority figure or your peers. And it's just I've always noticed people who play sports and who haven't played sports and how they develop as human beings and as adults, because it's a huge difference. Like, you have someone who's a loner who doesn't play sports, in life they're going to take a way different path and interact with people way differently than people who play basketball, softball, whatever, and they understand I'm not always the most important person in the room. It's about us as a collective unit. So 100%.
And there's actually something I want to add that it also teaches you, or also enables you, or gives you, or it provides you. Let's put it that way. Being part of a team provides you with the camaraderie and the, for lack of a better term, automatic friendship, if you will, right? Because when I went to college, the first day you step foot in college, you don't know anybody. Mm-hmm. You are starting from all the friends that you've been hanging out with for the last 18 years, unless they came with you, you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
But if you're part of a team, you instantly walk in and you have a group that you're part of, right? You've probably been there prior to the rest of school showing up. You've probably there for a couple of weeks because you had orientation with, for me, basketball. So when I first got on campus, I had a group of 20 guys that were instant friends. So it gives you that, there's no... you're not afraid to make friends. You already have a group that you're in. You're in. You got it.
I call it the built-in network.
Yes, thank you.
I call it that
built-in network.
Kids. Yeah, but they're not. They're
so
student
true.
Athletes. It's a built-in network. So the similarities with, and I agree definitely what you're saying with the discipline and the routine. This basketball and wrestling start simultaneously. So, it's a 2-semester sport when we're talking about the collegiate level.
Which I will add that it actually is the longest. These sports that are those winter sports, they're the longest of all the high school sports. Mm. I will say this.
So, and these are conversations I've had with like other colleagues in basketball, and I was telling you earlier how I'm trying to always grab information from other coaches, see what they're doing, even if it's not wrestling. So, I'm a big believer if you're too close to something, you can't see everything. You have blind spots. That's why I try to talk to different people and grab a little bit of info, even if they're not a wrestling coach, because there's something they're seeing it from a different perspective. It could be something I use or something I disregard, but I'm always trying to talk. But we say exactly that. It starts in October, so usually if the wrestlers or the basketball players get on campus, there is that time. Maybe there's some preseason type of workouts, open gym. The guys are shooting around. We would see the wrestlers are doing like some sort of running or strength and conditioning. But yeah, you're gonna build those relationships with those guys from the jump. And there is not a better thing that I could say in society today that a young man can do than join a sports team, build those relationships, and like get out in front of the screen, right? I look at the phone, I look at social media, it's a tool. Like you picking up a hammer to do a nail, or the screwdriver, that's it. You want to try to pick it up and use it with a purpose. And obviously children, there's got to be limits, right? Kids, but for us, the adults, the older crowd here, we got to utilize it, and it's a great tool. And there's a lot of things you can do to leverage your time and be effective as a professional. But you got to be careful with it. It's a dangerous.
You can get sucked in.
It's a slippery slope.
Yep,
100%.
And you guys know. So like, if I catch myself, like, one thing I picked up from Eric is like, you guys do a great job interacting with accounts. You interact with a lot of your accounts. So what I've been trying to do is interact more.
Mm-hmm.
And I built so many great relationships. And without it, social media on the flip side, I wouldn't have built a lot of these great relationships. People from the West Coast, the South.
From all over.
It's
we have
amazing.
people from Europe, from China.
You just saw us before. We were just FaceTiming, someone who just won our website giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
We have never met him in person. He's been a day one supporter of the podcast, but we've talked so much on social media between Justin and I. I had no problem just calling the guy and being like, "Hey, man, you won," and he called me back and he was like, "Fucking awesome." And it was just like that relationship. But I learned that a long time ago when we first started doing social media. It was Gary Vaynerchuk. It was another dude. I think he had
the $1.80 strategy.
The $1.80 strategy.
Yep.
Even before Gary, there was this guy, Minority Mindset, and he was big into.
Heard of him?
Yeah. I think he's
still around. I think.
Yeah, he's like a Middle Eastern guy. But he was like one of the first like virtual PDFs that I downloaded regarding social media, and I learned a lot from him about just if you have a passion, if you have an occupation where you can utilize social media, which is basically almost everything, you want to be able to utilize the people that are viewing, commenting, engaging, because that's just building your network even more. You never know what those people are watching, listening, you talk to them, what they have, what their experience, what they can do, and that's how we leverage relationships.
Yeah. There's actually you were mentioning about how you get sucked into this the social media and you can kind of create sometimes these bad habits, and you try to go into, if you're going to use social media, do it with a purpose. Like I'm going on to comment and engage and all these things, and that kind of goes back to, we had mentioned on the show about how bad habits form in the empty spaces on your calendar. Right? We had said this, I don't even remember what episode. It's a long time ago. Right? But we had said bad habits form in the empty spaces on your calendar. So going back to sports, I've always said that when you're involved in sports, right? Let's say when I was in high school, I was trying to be a good student in the, the advanced classes. I was in band. I was also an athlete. I had a lot of shit going on. I didn't have time to get in trouble. I didn't have time to form bad habits because I didn't have much downtime. If you're in sports, you got shit every day. You got practice. You got this. You got that. You got to make sure your homework's done, right? So when you have all of these things that are scheduled in your calendar,
making a post,
you don't have time to form the bad habits, and you don't have time to get into trouble. So I always said that sports keep you out of trouble.
I'm a firm believer in that too. An idle mind is a devil's playground, right? One of our
say that again.
An idle mind is a devil's playground.
An idle mind is a devil's playground.
I feel like I've definitely heard a similar saying to that before. I feel like
it's with the Coach Coco twist.
Damn,
that's like from the book Outwitting the Devil.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Outwitting the Devil.
And that was
Drifter.
The one you guys reviewed, right? Or you had the author on. That was a great
book.
Jose Ramon. Yeah.
I was a big fan of that.
Yeah. So that was
a big mindset guy.
That was a different book, but same principle. Same principle. Yeah. The book, right. We can't have Napoleon Hill on, but Outwitting the Devil was a great book where they talk about that, where if you become a wanderer or drifter, he calls it a drifter, where you drift through life never amounting to anything, never going after anything, never, always fearing failure or fearing success or fearing this or fearing that, whatever the case may be. They talk about how the devil infiltrates your mind by putting fear into you, and then you never go after your dreams and you become a drifter. Mm-hmm. So it's the same principle as idle mind is a devil's playground.
Nick, where did you develop this whole mindset, to overcome obstacles, overcome, adversities? Where'd you develop that mindset of, just saying, no matter what's in my face, I'm just going to get it done?
That's a great question, Eric. So you talked about the habits. Justin was talking about the habits. So in our program, in the Hunter program, we that's one of our values. So like Phil Jackson had his values.
Mm-hmm.
Our program has values. One of the ones we want to reinforce is good habits, and this would be one of our 5 type of themes. Think of them as themes, and these are the ones that we want to reinforce. So promoting good habits, right? And then to answer your question about like resiliency, adversity, I'm a big believer in as people follow me on social, I love Rocky.
Oh yeah.
I love the get down 7, get up 8, I'm a big believer in the underdog and never giving up, and I actually partner with a company. It's called Wrestling Mindset. They are all over, work pretty much with hundreds of athletes, tremendous programs, Big Ten, Division I wrestling teams, great wrestlers. And through their training, I've learned a lot about mindset and sports performance. And we have a great relationship, and it's awesome working with them and working for them. And they have a huge following. And so I've learned a lot of the technical and the exercises and worksheets through them. And even Joe Rogan has mentioned them on his podcast. So I have a great relationship with these guys, and they're out based in Jersey, but we pretty much have mindset coaches all over the country. So I do a lot of consulting with athletes, wrestlers, and one of the things I'm going to start getting into is consulting teams. So say, there's a program in Wichita, Kansas. We're going to use a random place. I'm going to help their program build mindset and training. So I've learned a lot of the technicalities and the actual stuff. But as a wrestler, you're going to develop these principles by default, right? Because in the beginning, just like anything, you're going to get knocked down a lot before you get really good. And so you're going to have to learn to deal with adversity right away. And wrestling is a different type of sport. The best part is that you got no one else to blame. The worst part is you got no one else to blame.
It's just like golf.
Wow,
golf.
That's a good point.
Yep.
And I'm happy you mentioned golf. So
that's why I love golf so much, is because it's you against you.
It's a very mental, it's a very mindset oriented sport. I think it's a great way, a great way for older athletes, people who are still looking to be active. To be active.
Legit. It's so funny you say that, because there's
coaches, specific guys I want to, yeah.
There's a meme that always goes around that says, to all my ex D3 athletes, how's your golf game going? Because it's so true how it's like, you're an athlete, but then you still want the competitiveness, and there's still, I was playing in some men's leagues for quite some time, and then COVID hit and I kind of stopped playing, but we wound up winning the championship before that happened, so I went out a winner. But basketball, yeah. But you're playing in men's leagues, and you're kind of, sometimes you get some of the leagues that are just not. You get some very competitive leagues. There are still some very competitive leagues. So, but then once you kind of get to, you're getting to the 35, 40, 45, 50, right? You don't have a 45-inch vertical. You're not running a 4.5 40 anymore, right? At 50 years old, your body is taking a little bit of a toll. You can't. You don't have you're not as limber as you once were. So that's why I think golf is so great, because you can play golf until you're fucking 100.
Right.
It's a low impact sport, right? I played against a guy who couldn't hit the ball more than 200 yards, and he shot a fucking 78, which for those that don't play golf is a good score.
Fucking great score.
Okay, that is a good score. The average golfer shoots like 95 to 105. Okay, so he shot a 78. And the guy was like 80.
So for kids, for young people growing up in either high school or college, what would you usually tell a kid, like if they're trying to play football, basketball, wrestling, what is the reason why they should choose wrestling as opposed to some other sports?
I believe that the athlete, the individual has to make a choice, right? So it depends on the age. If we're talking like 11th and 12th grade, it's good to it's good to start specializing in one or two sports max. I'm a big believer when the kids are young. when they're 5, 6 elementary age. Have them do everything. Have them try everything. Have them develop. I'm going to put my kids in specifically gymnastics and wrestling from the jump.
I'm so glad you said that. Did you see that on Instagram? I happen to just see a guy who spoke about that very thing. He said, I'm going to put my kids in gymnastics at a young age. He says, because gymnastics develops flexibility, it develops strength. There's no weight lifting. It is just body weight. You develop control of your body. You learn how to manipulate your body in all these different ways, and then put them in every single sport possible. Then they'll know and be aware about how they can maneuver their body in all these different ways, and whichever one they excel out the most, go 100% in on that.
That's like sometimes you see professional running backs. I've seen this with a few running backs, maybe other positions in football, but there'll be professional running backs or even collegiate running backs. They take dancing lessons for their footwork.
For the footwork.
And
that's why a lot of them play soccer, too.
It's like this, kind of like the same thing. Like, I would never thought about starting kids in gymnastics super young, but it makes sense when you're in football, even wide receivers. It's all out about footwork. What's a good way besides football practice to enhance that? It's dance lessons.
That's why Steve Nash. That's why Steve Nash. He was. For those who don't know Steve Nash is one of the best point guards to ever play basketball.
Better know Steve Nash.
You better know Steve Nash, the Canadian, right? He actually
the adults only.
He had phenomenal footwork, and it's because he played soccer.
Right.
And Ocho Cinco, another guy, played soccer. That's why they have such great footwork in whatever sport they do, and that's a great thing. Important. Dance is another way to do that.
So how does gymnastics correlate with? I know we kind of just discussed it, but specifically, how does gymnastics correlate with wrestling?
So you guys know, like when I went to Brockport, like my education background is physical education, kinesiology, sports physiology, those the really ins and outs and the intricacies of like anatomy, physiology. So
using one's body.
Yeah, kinesia, and you get, and yours even, we've done classes where we're integrating like physics, like kinetics is physics and movement. So long story short, I've had a lot of time to study this. I've had to do a lot of research, things like that when I was a student, and then still now, essentially as a professional. But the gymnastics builds spatial and body awareness. It builds awareness of one's limbs to the space. And there's not a better thing for a kid to do to learn how to move their body within space, how to fall properly, how to forward roll. We incorporate our program Hunter a lot of gymnastics type movements, even though they're older, to build that athleticism, handstands and cartwheels. We use that in our strength and conditioning and our warm up. And because even as the athlete is older, I'm working primarily with 18, 23-year-olds, it helps their body really develop those muscles. We'll use that loosely.
Yeah.
That you're not typically going to get from your traditional big three.
Yeah, not the beach muscles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you were saying that I've always thought that. I also want my kids to do like a judo, jiu-jitsu. I've been a practitioner for a long time. I'm currently like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu blue belt.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I've trained a lot of grappling in general, the grappling arts, judo, jiu-jitsu, and obviously wrestling. So I utilize those as more of a way. One, I love them. They're different than wrestling, but I try to learn things from them and then bring them to our sport. Remember we were talking about the division thing earlier? About like the Italians and the whole thing?
Okay.
There's the same thing in the grappling art. So wrestlers think they're better than jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu thinks they're...
I don't think anything trumps jiu-jitsu, BJJ, okay? That's just my personal... I'm not familiar with the combat arts, but like
it's like the
martial
basketball,
arts.
football, like our sport. There's this I think it hurts because grappling is grappling. Like so, wrestling and jiu-jitsu, think of them as like cousins. There's moves in wrestling that they do in jiu-jitsu, and so if we learn to blend these together and not have huge, massive egos for no reason, we can like accelerate these sports in the combat sports.
That's why like UFC fighters who have a real good background in jiu-jitsu and wrestling do really well, I believe.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. I feel like...
Well, it's like, the ones that, the boxers that they have such a background in boxing, they try to stay on their feet because they don't have the expertise in ground game.
Wow.
But then the ones that have the ground game, the expertise that aren't really boxers, they try to get you on the ground. Try to play to your strengths, right?
There's more UFC champions who are former wrestlers than any other martial art. So since 1993 when the UFC started, 30 years.
Brock Lesnar.
If you look at a lot of the guys who are champions, Randy Couture, some of these former UFC, they have Division I wrestling experience, most likely somewhere in their accolades. Now we're starting to see, and this isn't an MMA podcast, but you're starting to see more strikers. They're starting to dominate a little bit, the kickboxers.
Do you think that has anything to do with the trend of sports? And what I mean by that is sports have become an offensive game. Right? They've become an offensive game. There's a reason why scores in NBA are 130 to 110, whereas if you go 30 years ago, it was 85 to 80. Okay? Back then, it was defense. It was a defensive game.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's an offensive game. Offense sells tickets. Defense wins championships, right? Same thing with, that's why there's all these flags and there's all these fouls and and the scoring and the offense has gotten so much.
I have an insane theory about this.
Okay, so do you think
keep that thought?
So my question: do you think that the UFC is leaning towards that because nobody wants to see a KO by submission? They want to see somebody's head get kicked in.
Yeah.
Because that's what sells tickets, right? They want to see somebody come in with a flying knee, knock the guy out in 30 seconds. That sells tickets. They don't want to see it go for 5 rounds and it's a split decision. That's why Floyd Mayweather was such a boring fighter, because he was so defensive, but he went 52-0? He won matches. Now granted, there's a lot of politics involved and stuff like that. But do you think that trend of it's become like offense sells tickets, do you think that's why a lot of things are becoming more of the strike and not the ground game?
There's a lot of moving parts. I'm a big believer in offense wins championships, like the old best defense is a good offense.
Okay.
We'll keep it simple. I'm a big believer in that as a coach. We're not going to win championships sitting back and wrestling, right? We have to have what I would call an attack mindset. We need to score points. Just like how you would say to a basketball player, we need to put points on the board.
No, you're right. At the end of the day, you're right. You
so
need
that's
to put more points than they do. You're right.
We keep that in perspective. You're talking specifically about the MMA thing. We'll start with that. I believe that wrestlers now, we'll use the 2008, 2010 time frame, you had Daniel Cormier, you had Ben Askren, you had really phenomenal international senior level wrestlers. And at the time, there was not a lot of money in wrestling. There still is limited funds, but it has improved tremendously since, I'd say, 2012 to now, past decade or so. Thanks to an athlete, his name's Jordan Burroughs. He was a 2-time gold medalist. He really helped propel the sport, specifically this wrestler. But prior, they really didn't have an avenue. So if you didn't make the Olympics, you went to MMA because there was money.
Yeah, or you went to the WWE.
Right.
Like Kurt Angle.
And we're seeing, so now what's happening, Justin, is a lot of wrestlers, elite level college Division I wrestlers, they're not making the MMA jump because they're being incentivized to stay in our sport, wrestling. So not to get lost into the weeds. So wrestling programs now have these things called RTCs, regional training centers, where a senior level athlete, say they're 24, 25, they just graduated undergrad, they can train now at this center and be funded. So there's
paid?
Yeah, and there's stipends, and there's just more money in the sport. So wrestlers back in the day, and really it's insane that 08 is back in the day.
Fucking crazy.
It was, 15 years ago, man? It's 15 years ago.
Man.
And we're in this multitude effect, and it's because of social media, it's because of technology, things are changing and advancing. But anyway, I really believe that they were seeing more wrestlers stay in wrestling. They're still coming into MMA, the Bellator MMA, UFC, PFL. But primarily from a spectator perspective, there's less because there's more money in wrestling. Other sports, we'll use basketball and soccer. So I saw a great infographic that showed where shots on the court were taken 20 years ago compared to now. Yeah. Everything's inside in the paint. Everything's on the outside. I believe that this is due to technology because we consume sports differently now. This is I think because we consume the highlights and because we can only watch clips, it has also evolved the spectator's experience. That's why baseball viewership, if we want to get into that, I think that has a major part is the technology, the refinement. And if you really want to get crazy, we can look at certain brands. Some big brands, how their logos have changed. Some of our favorite brands, from coffee to clothing.
Yeah.
They become very refined, let's say.
Yeah, modernized, and simple, and yep.
So I believe there's a connection with all this. And I hope I didn't lose anyone in this.
No, I got you. I'm following.
Oh no, I mean I think it makes a lot of sense because with today's day and age, everything is so instant. Everything is instant gratification. You got to catch someone's eye. Tweet. You got to catch someone's eye instantly because you know why? A finger scroll, a swipe. There's something better. So you have to really gain someone's attention very quickly. So I think it makes total sense. And I think if you're a company, if you're a coach or whatever you're doing, if you're not trying to gain someone's attention instantly, then you're going to be missing out on a whole lot of market share because that's where we're at in today's age.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's
where the clickbait strategy comes in, right? And that's
isn't that such a shame?
And you know what's funny is it is a shame. It is a shame because it's a scam basically. You're putting something up, say, hey, click me, and then they click it, and it's not really what you. But you're almost being forced to do that because otherwise people aren't going to click.
If you go on YouTube, you just see so many clip arts and titles being like, "I jumped out of a plane," or "My plane was crashing." So like I just watched this documentary about how this outdoor, adrenaline junkie essentially crashed his plane.
You should golf.
What?
I think you should golf.
Yeah.
Nah. I mean, I try to golf as much as I can. But
the adrenaline junkie. We should get him on the golf game. Save his life.
He would need this guy. He's actually in jail. This guy's actually in jail now. But I forgot his name. But he was like on Nitro Circus and all this stuff. But
Nitro Circus,
with Travis Pastrana and stuff.
Holy shit!
He crashed his plane on purpose because he knew people were gonna click it. So like there was all these like aviator professionals like reviewing his video, the government agency for planes reviewed him, and he ended up going to jail because he made this viral video of him jumping out of a plane, even though the plane was nothing wrong. He crashed it, and it's stuff like that. Like even for us. One of our most downloaded episodes on the podcast here is the title is what is it? It's John Daly and Bert Kreischer, where we just talk about them, but it just says Burn Down Podcast, Bert Kreischer and John Daly, and it has a lot of downloads. And I'm just thinking because people see that and they're like, oh, they must be on the podcast. Let me listen to it. And there was no intention of clickbaiting, but that's my philosophy. You go everywhere, everything's clickbait.
But it's interesting that you bring up a good point where the guy, intentionally crashed the plane because he gets views and he thought it'd be good for the viewership. It reminds me of a movie called Nerve. Have you ever seen the movie Nerve?
No.
You might have seen it, but not familiar with the title. But the movie was about there was an app that people could download, and it dared you to do things, and the more things that you did, then the more points you would get, and the more viewers you would watch, and the more money you would make. And every dare that you did got more intense and more intense and more intense, and it got to the point
like getting paid to be jackass.
Like it would dare. It would be like, you'd click it and you say truth or dare. It was a truth or dare app or something like that. You say dare, then it would say, I dare you to run across 58th Street naked, and you'd have to film yourself. So you would go live. And you would do it, and then people would be like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And they would like it, and you would go to the next.
I'm surprised that's actually not a real thing.
So you go to the here's what I'm getting at. You go to the next level, right? And the next level will be a little bit more. Be like, all right, well, jump out of a 2-story building. And they go, okay, and you would do that. And the next level will be, ride a motorcycle, wrong direction, and you would do it. And it got so crazy because people were craving the attention and the viewership and the likes that at the end of the movie. It said, I dare you to kill someone. And the guy had to, in order to get to the next level, he had to kill somebody. And, I
never heard of this movie.
It's a crazy movie, but it gets to your point where people are, they're craving this attention and they're craving this approval from their peers, which is what Instagram and all these things are. You want to get the likes. And you feel satisfied, you feel better about yourself because you're getting likes from people that don't even matter. And it's forcing people to do these crazy fucking things. And it's like, when is it too much?
Where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line at crashing your fucking plane?
Speaking of crashing, my cigar is crashing right now. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Crazy, man.
Crazy. It is.
I believe we have to talk to, the up-and-coming generation. We have to talk to, what I do with the wrestlers is, social is a tool. So if you're an athlete now, you could use it to get recruited. You can use it to put yourself in front of the audience you want to. And it goes back to that tool point. But if you base your self-worth and self-esteem on, external validation, likes, messages, you're in for a rude awakening. So you need to talk to these young people about the dangers, about the power. With great power comes great responsibility. I had a professor tell me that in college as a coach.
Was it Uncle Ben?
It should have been. But it's the truth. And because we need to talk about these the perils of this, because if you're basing your whole self-worth and how you feel about yourself on a like, the problem is that people can't separate themselves from the phone to reality, who they actually are, you know? And I also am a big believer in this. I want to see people do well. I want them to be successful. But I believe that you can't get on there and get started until you actually have gained the skill and the expertise, because then you're just you're creating content with no
purpose.
You know, and before, and obviously speaking to you guys and speaking to other people I'm close with, they're like, you know, you could just do this on social media, right? Like you just post the things you... So that's essentially what I've done. Is a lot of my coaching philosophies, the things that I'm just sharing who I've already been. And it's not really hard for me to create content because I've already been on this tip since day one.
You've already acquired all of the knowledge, and now it's like, I don't have to try to be somebody that I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't have to put on a facade. This is who I am. I'm just trying to post it. But you have a purpose, though. Excuse me. You have a purpose because you're not posting it to get the likes. You're posting it to help other people. The intention is, if I can help somebody, you know, whether it's learning how to perform a takedown, okay? You're teaching them something.
It's a good YouTube title,
right?
That's one that I've used.
But you're teaching them something. You're educating them in a sport, which hopefully is going to help them be successful later on. So you're going in with a purpose. You're not going in to try to get likes. If you get likes, then it helps the algorithm. It helps you reach more people, which is essentially what we're trying to do. Is we try to post content so that we can reach more people, so we can grow our following, so that we can help more people. That's the cycle, right?
Bring more people.
You post stuff so that you can reach more people, so you can grow your following, so that you can help more people. So you post more stuff to help more people, and then you grow it and you keep. That's the cycle.
You know, it's one thing I love about social is, like, back in the day, right? You needed a record deal to get started. You needed a publishing house to help you write a book. You needed a record deal to do a podcast, radio, right? You need to get that. You need to go to Motown or wherever in New York City.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. And I think that it's an awesome. There's a lot of, and we were talking, and I got to be honest. There's a lot of like dismal, very self-defeative, self-sabotaging mentality right now in the world, especially with young men, young people in general. And first of all, it's not based in reality, because this is the greatest time to be alive.
For sure.
You can press a button and we can get the Uber here, and we can go out into Manhattan tonight.
Yep.
We could get some food dropped off right on the phone and have some pizzas after this. So we are living in a time of opportunity, great opportunity. It's just a matter of people going to take the advantage of it with their given industry. And everyone has a talent. Everyone has something that they're already specialized in, from schooling, from maybe a family business. It's just honing that. And I just have to dismiss the old like negativity, world is ending. That's got to go.
Yeah.
That has no place for the Vino, the Stogies, the Burn Down,
but Coach
Coco. There's no room for that.
That's the victim mentality, right? You can either be a victim or a victor. You know what I'm saying?
It's important on the mat and on the field. And
that's with everything. That's with life. You can either be a victim or a victor. Okay, you can say, woe is me, and it's the worst time to be alive, and this sucks, and that sucks, I'm never going to do this, I'm never going to do that. Or you can just, grab the shit by the freaking cojones and do something about it, right? You either complain about it, which doesn't do shit, or you can do something about it. Seize the day. Take the opportunity at hand.
Carpe diem.
Right? And become a victor in your life. So,
Carpe diem.
Yeah, you got to go forward. There's a lot of things, and you were asking me the question earlier. You could either be a product of your environment, or your environment could be a product of you. Like, you need to be the person who's we're talking about social media, so perception is reality, right? And so obviously
people aren't always what they post about.
You could seem to be an authority, and then I can watch it on wrestling and I can be like, why is that guy's elbow out? And like his video's super sickly edited and looks phenomenal.
Who's that
I'm
freaking guy that teaches the self defense? He wears all the freaking padding and he tells you like how to beat somebody with a seatbelt. And I'm like, and then there's a guy that he'll like, oh, this is what you got to do. You got to pin the arm and grab the seatbelt and whatever. And then there's somebody that shows like the real world scenario.
It's just like complete,
and it's just so wrong. Right? And that's to your point is these guys come on and they pretend to be like an expert and go, you're not helping anybody. If anything, you're hurting them because that's not really what's going to happen.
Not only hurting them, but you're just losing credibility of how ridiculous you sound.
Yeah, it's completely false. Right? It's just not what actually happens.
There's a lot of people without like any experience, and then in that regard, like the best self-defense, the best coach is going to tell you to not be there in the first place.
It's so funny that you bring up the self-defense because there was a gym that I used to go to, and I'll shout them out. It was called Ultimate Gym. It was in Hicksville, and it was a hole-in-the-wall gym. No, knock on them. Hole-in-the-wall meaning a good term because it wasn't a big marquee.
It means it was legit.
Yeah, it wasn't a big marquee name. It was like
you went there to grind.
It was iron.
Tough
like you're lifting iron. Okay, yeah. You're like
Tough
you ever see like
up an iron.
Arnold's old
those are the gyms you want to be in.
Yeah, like
rust,
just
metals,
exactly.
Weights clanging.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And they had a defense course called Impact, which was an acronym for something. But he always says your main goal in self-defense. He goes, somebody jumps you. They have a gun, they have a knife, whatever. They have nothing. They jump you. And he goes, your main goal is to get out of there alive. He goes, your main goal is to get back to your family. He said, if somebody jumps you and says, give me all your money, you give them your fucking money. He goes, you try to make it as simple as possible. He goes, the first thing, this is the first thing I'm going to teach you about self-defense. He goes, it has nothing to do with moves. I'm not going to teach you how to get the gun. He goes, I'm going to teach you how to defuse the situation. Somebody comes up and says, give me all your money. You give them all your money. And they might walk away, and then great. You're alive. You get to go back to your wife and kids. If they say, give me your phone, you give them your phone. They might walk away. Great. You get to go back to your wife and kids. It has nothing. You're not going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. He goes, worst case scenario, if you do all that, and then they're still there, he goes, then I will teach you how to, do these things. But you're trying to diffuse the situation. Get home. If you can run, run. He goes, if they don't have a gun, if they haven't, run. Take off, gone. He goes, your goal is to get back to your wife and kids. Money is money, a phone is phone, wallet's wallet, whatever. Keys to your car, you can always get a fucking another one. Get home to your wife and kids.
That's why you got insurance.
And I go, that's a beautiful thing to teach people. He goes, just, if you can run, take off. He goes, if it's a big fat guy and you can outrun him, gone. Yeah. See you later. As long as you're not with, you can't leave your wife and kids there. But it's just a great, people don't teach that. They guys on YouTube, I'm going to teach you how to do this. No. He wants my money here. Take my money, sure. You want my wedding ring? Take my wedding, fine. I'll get another one, okay? And I'll have it blessed by a priest again. I want to get home to my wife and kids I don't have, but that's the goal.
Soon to
right?
be.
Hypothetical kids.
But it's a shame that people try to teach you all the. It goes back to the flash. They want the flash. They want the knockout punch.
They want the views.
That's what they want. But that's not. You know how many times it's like you see a situation happen and it's like, or your point, don't get involved in the situation. If I see two guys fighting at a bar, cool, go ahead. I'm out, honey. We're leaving. Gone.
You finish my old fashioned and get out.
Gone. I'm not getting involved. I don't care. Doesn't bother me. See you later.
Life is full of choices. Because people are so distracted now, there's like a very big lack of self-awareness, and like where you are, what's your location, what's your status, and just making like basic appropriate choices. Like, do you really need to go to the gas station at 1:30, or could it wait till the morning?
Yeah.
Like as men, sometimes we're so fixated on like doing things. Sometimes we got to check ourselves. Right?
Yeah,
like,
that's why we have wives.
Yeah,
right?
That too.
Keep you in check.
Little breaker.
Like what you said is don't put yourself in those situations. There was another gentleman who talked about it. The heck's his name? He is a Jewish motivational speaker kind of guy into politics. Oh, what the fuck is his name?
I got to give up.
Can't remember his name.
Not Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro. It is Ben Shapiro.
You forgot Ben Shapiro's name?
Okay, it's Ben Shapiro. But he talks about things. He makes it. He goes, listen. He goes, you get robbed, right? You get robbed by a bunch of gang members or whatever. Is it right? 100% no. He goes, they should be they should be arrested and they should be held to the full extent of the law. He goes, that is 100% wrong to rob somebody. However, if you go walking down a dark alley in the wrong neighborhood in the middle of the night waving a $100 bill over your head, don't be surprised when you get robbed.
Yes. Prevention is the best form of medicine, fellas.
Right. Don't put yourself in bad situations, and then you won't get bad results. Because yes, shit happens, but you know what I'm saying? Like, avoidance. Avoidance is the best safety.
And obviously, I'm a big believer in like self-defense. I've always trained the wrestling, martial arts. I'm a big fan, obviously. Like
as a last resort, though, right?
It's not, but the way they promote it is awful. Like these accounts. My a little mention. My old jiu-jitsu instructor, Steven Strangles People. He does hilarious videos on this. So like he'll discuss anything on the internet, like fights that happen in a mall, fights that happen in a gas station. He does like breakdowns. This is like his niche. This is his thing. But I watch
comedic videos or
documentaries, comedic. So it's all entertainment. Very similar to you guys with the spoofs. So I just like his take on this. He does a good job. Like the guy with the elbow pad, that guy we were making fun of earlier. But it's just funny because he's an absolute savage and like multiple Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. And if he's having the commentary, like, what are these guys doing?
Yeah, you don't want to
He's the authority.
Yeah.
It's like the cigar. And
it's funny how those guys that, you know, you'll see the guys that are the black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. They'll tell you firsthand. They're like, I'm just going to not, if I don't have to.
Well, isn't that the whole thing about martial arts is like you're not really supposed to use it unless you're put in a situation until you need to use it, right? Isn't that the big philosophy?
That's the whole freaking thing. That's the whole thing, man. Great book. I have the book in my library.
I'm a big fan of that. Oh, we were talking about Musashi and like the Walking Alone and then the Five Rings and those types of books, Machiavelli, like those books right there have helped. They've kind of you said like influenced me early on. Mm-hmm. Like my favorite movie is The Bronx Tale, right? And in the movie they're talking about Machiavelli. So I watched the movie, and as a kid, I go and take out a book on Machiavelli. That's when I knew I was like different from other kids because I'm sitting there reading Machiavelli in middle school, but not paying attention in actual school.
That takes a special character for sure.
And I'm trying to learn about strategy from like day one, and I'm like a big
Art of War
believer about like autobiographies, right? Like I loved autobiographies, especially with the pictures, right? Forget about it. But it's always like trying to do things like how did I get to this point? I was always trying to learn from like day one. Like it wasn't like I was never using something for like, there was times I read a fiction book, but for the most part, like I'm trying to be like, how can I relate this to when I was an athlete? How can I relate this as a coach? And I think if you apply that, whatever you're going to do, podcasts, social media videos, your career, like you're going to be all right once you learn once you can get good at one thing, you can get good at another thing.
Sure.
It's all mechanics, right? It's all like with you with the sales process, like, so maybe we're not selling technically, but we are in a way in wrestling.
But
there's a process. So we go through a funnel system, like with our program, like we've actually discussed the process, like step 1, 2, 3, just like the sales process. So there's so much carryover with this stuff, and I think if you can learn to like connect those dots, you'll be all right. You'll do all right with whatever you're doing, and it's mostly mechanics, like the 80-20 rule.
No,
Pareto principle.
Since we're on this topic here.
Yeah. I'm jumping around a bit too. No, you guys are rubbing off on me.
No, we're not
jumping off. Down's rubbing off.
This is.
Let's get another cheers going one more time. This is a
honestly,
special moment.
No, this is. I'm
happy to be here with you, fellas.
Yeah, I'll say that this is a. Let me.
Little chin.
You can't cheers and then not drink. I think that this is just such a great conversation. I'm very interested in all of these topics that we're going over, and it's a wonderful conversation how we can just maneuver around and go to different areas and stuff. But I'm going to ask you, like, so you were a Division 2, Brockport's Division 2? Division 3. So you're a Division 3 wrestler in Brockport, okay? Rival school of ours at RIT. You graduate. And what was your degree in? You said you studied a few things. What was
a physical education?
Physical education,
coaching.
So how did you go? Did you immediately go into like? I'm assuming you didn't just jump right into being the D1. Or is Hunter D1? D3. Okay, so I'm assuming you didn't jump from Brockport graduating right into Hunter College.
Fun fact.
Okay.
Nick took the interview for Hunter coaching at my apartment.
So okay.
During the was it the one of the events that we were just
me and Nick were outside having a cigar, and he's like, "Hold on, I gotta take this interview. This is a head coaching job." I'm like, "All right, brother, take it."
I guarantee that cigar relaxed you very nice and easy.
Definitely had a part in it.
So how did you go from you graduate and then now you're Hunter's Division III wrestling coach, head coach? What was the jump like?
Just like you fellas, for the listeners, we've heard a lot about where you guys started, where you are now. Listen, I started from, first of all, when I was in college, I was a camp counselor. I was a wrestling camp counselor for Cornell wrestling camps right in Ithaca. So, Justin, a lot of the time at our campus, we were both in the same area. Justin and I, we went to school in Rochester, Western New York, very far from here where we are in Long Island, but
not the best place to be for a winter sport. I'll tell you that right now.
That intersection, right? When you're the only sports teams are on campus.
You are the only people.
I've never experienced that
right?
before.
How everybody goes away for Christmas break? Yeah, you get 3 days and you're back on the 27th, and you don't have New Year's at home. You don't have 2 weeks off. You are back because there's a New Year's tournament, and you are on campus in the freezing fucking cold with 8 feet of snow, and there's nobody there.
And if you could do that, and your boss says, "Hey, you got to work an extra hour," you don't even bat an eye.
Yeah, when you got to walk to practice and it's -10.
Case in point, sports breed discipline. You're a college kid. You want to party for New Year's.
There was a lot of that sacrifice.
And you know what my coach did?
You got to sacrifice your time. You got to sacrifice being with your friends.
It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
And I can probably say that your coach did the same thing, but my coach, New Year's Day and the day after Halloween,
we had practice.
8 a.m. practice. Be there on the court, dressed and ready, 7:30.
And if you weren't, you were running sprints. You were doing some kind of conditioning.
Oh, yeah. My coach would turn, if you were late, my coach would turn the clock on and it would count up. And whatever time you showed up, whatever was on that, he would double it and it would count down. You would run for it. So if you were 15 minutes late to practice, he would double it, make it 30, and you would run until it hit 0.
And my senior of football for 2 days, there was a big house party, like a Project X party almost, like invitations were going out.
What a reference!
Yeah, right.
For the mature audience.
Did somebody jump off a roof?
So it was.
I love it.
It was like a summer bash, right? And the coaches got wind of it that this party was going down. So the coaches made an announcement the day of the party, the day before party, saying, "Hey, if we find out that you went to that party, or if you come if you come to practice late, or you're hungover, we will be doing." I don't know what it
suicides?
was. It wasn't suicides. It was something with bear crawls. It was remember like the Indian runs, right? Bear crawls, where you run and the person in the back got sprint, the next person.
We used to do those.
Yep.
So this is what
those were huge.
Bear crawls. So
that's brutal.
And of course, kids went. I mean, I think I was one of them. Went to the party, but I didn't get blasted. I know how to wake up to practice. But when found out that
if you're gonna be the man at night, you better be the man in the morning.
100%.
That's a whole other topic.
Moral of the story is that the coaches found out that the kids were at the party, and we had to do this Indian run bear crawl style, and it was the fucking worst experience of my life. I'll never forget these huge big linemen going. And you have to plank. Everyone has to plank, and the person at the end has to crawl. Oh, and you couldn't stop until the last kid was done.
Sore for a week.
Yeah, 2 weeks, and it was like 50-some kids.
Bro,
and, dude, that was talking about discipline and being put in your place and knowing when to
consequences.
Consequences.
I'll tell you when I was in college, it was probably after Halloween. I had woke up and I did this once and I never did it again. I woke up late and I showed up like 20 minutes late to practice, and I knew the consequences. and I was hungover as shit, and I showed up to practice. I just immediately started running, okay? Because I knew. I'm like, I'm going to run. So I had to run for like 40 fucking minutes. I was running so much.
Turned into Coach Carter real quick.
Let me tell you.
Mature audience.
I was running so much, you just run around the court, that I had to stop and go the other way because I was getting dizzy. And I tell you, when you want to talk about being dehydrated, I stopped sweating. Like
The Locos.
I completely stopped sweating. There was nothing coming out of my body anymore. After that practice, I went into my locker room and I took a towel and I just put it over my head, and I sat in my locker for like a good 30 minutes. I just couldn't move. Yeah. There was nothing coming out of me anymore. I couldn't feel my fucking legs. I was so dehydrated. I just kept thinking to myself, I will never, ever make this mistake again.
No doubt.
Ever.
No doubt.
And I never did. I was, from that day on, practice started at 8. I was there at like 6:45. Getting shots. Because I was like, I will never be late again.
So, staying on the topic of discipline and mindset and how you learn from your mistakes. Like, you obviously... Go ahead.
No, I just want to go back because Justin asked me.
Like, how did you get into?
Because I want people to understand.
Remember that question.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I want people to understand. Like, I started coaching youth wrestling, elementary age students from the bottom.
Camp counselor. This was at the camp counselor.
Yeah, that was youth, high school. It was a mixed group, but first I'm doing that. Right, I'm learning from other. It was a great opportunity. I'm very grateful for that because that's a big program. That's big exposure. But also, once I graduated, you asked, I'm going to grad school. Okay, at the time, I'm in graduate school, and I'm coaching a modified team up in Western New York. So I'm learning from, like, I've done youth, I've done the modified, and then when I moved back down after I finished my master's degree, I was coaching at the high school level, varsity, junior varsity, middle school.
What high school?
I was at a high school in Section 1 up in Westchester, and then I was helping with the Clark Rams Club over here in Long Island, Levittown, East Meadow area. Yep. So, just staying local, we have some really good, my old college teammate, one of my great friends is a coach there. And it's networking, it's knowing people. But before I even thought about a college opportunity, I was never thinking about, yes, it was always an end goal, but I wasn't, people want to get to the top. They want to skip steps. They want to skip vital developmental steps. And you really can't. And if you do, even me, I was pretty young becoming a head coach, right? And of course, like, there's never a perfect time. I'll say there's never a perfect time for any opportunity. And there's going to be failure, and there's going to be learning experiences. And you're going to fall down. But I believe you do. Like, if you want to own the restaurant, like, you better start as a busboy.
Sure.
I know
you got to learn
every
every aspect of the restaurant.
But
yeah.
I know we were criticizing society, so this is another critique. You cannot start in that position you need to put the time in with whatever education it is. You need to know the X's and O's. I love using that, the X's, the doubles and singles, the why. We got to know the why. You can't coach today's athlete without knowing, because they're going to look at you and be like, why are we doing this, coach? So they are. They're going to ask you, and they grew up with the phone.
And you need to have the
You need
answer.
to be the phone.
Yeah.
You need to be Google. So you better know what you're talking about. It's like the cigars. Like, you guys are an authority because you know you don't need to Google. You guys know. You did the research with the blueprint. My point is that they want to they want to jump steps. And life does not work that way, baby. You cannot
100%.
You cannot.
Just look at, I guarantee you the statistics of millionaires and billionaires. If you take a guy who had nothing, or a guy or a girl who had nothing and built something into themselves, as opposed to someone who had family money and was handed off an opportunity or a job or a business, those people who were handed something are going to be way less successful than the people who had nothing and were so much hungrier to get to the top as a person who's already on the top and has to figure out how to stay on top or how to be on top.
Perfect theoretical experiment. You take both of those people, the person that started with nothing and built themselves into a millionaire, and then the person that was just handed the millionaire fortune, okay? Take both of those people and remove everything from them. Remove everything. Take it all away. Which one is going to get back to the million?
Yeah, 100%.
The person that built it from scratch and learned and went through every step and didn't skip steps and learned the process, learned what they needed to become a millionaire, or the person that was handed it?
Because that person already went through it. So
exactly.
It's got to copy and paste.
And how many stories have we heard of millionaires say, yeah, I built my fortune into a multi-million-dollar business, and I lost it all from the fucking crash, and in 5 years, they're back to it.
I mean, every entrepreneur that we had on this podcast, they didn't get handed to them. They had some kind of a tough upbringing, terrible family life, immigrant, had nothing, and they built themselves into something. And I will always take the underdog, the person who has nothing, next to the person who was given something.
I mean, look at lottery winners. Like 80% of lottery winners that have a broke mindset that win multi-millions within 5 years, they're broke. Mm-hmm. And I go, if you win $100 million fucking dollars, how are you not set for the rest of your life? How are your kids not set? How are your grandkids not set? How are you bankrupt in 5 years?
Yeah.
Because they don't have the mindset. They haven't learned
the
skills
athletes,
needed.
Right?
Yeah.
With the NFL and NBA, typically, you see them with their contracts, and when they're short.
That's why Shaq was so good about what he did with his he fired his financial advisor the day he signed to the NBA.
Well, even Shaq, I mean, he was saying, like, I didn't know about taxes. He's like, so I make $1 million. I'm going to buy a house for $300,000. I'm going to get my mom a Benz for $40,000. All right, so I have X amount left over. And he's like,
nope.
No, you got to pay taxes. You got to do this. He's got, oh, shit.
This whole topic reminds me of another great book, The Millionaire Next Door. So in The Millionaire Next Door, the statistics, I think about 2/3 roughly of millionaires in America. This is in the 90s, but then they did an updated one. 66% are first-generation millionaires, meaning they didn't come from money. So the majority, I think it's still in this ballpark.
I would confidently say so.
I would agree with that.
And I'm not, but the majority of millionaires are self-made. And there are then the generations after usually are the ones that squander it. And the people who do, so I think it goes back to you have revisiting the sports. You have to incorporate these lessons, teach your children, teach your family, your kids, your nieces, nephews, whoever, the art of delaying instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
I think wealth building has to do directly with delaying gratification. And it could be as simple as like making your own coffee to maybe I'm not going to drive the new whatever car. Maybe I'm going to lay low a little bit. And then when this thing is cheap to me, then I'll get it. Not to say it's a balance. It really is a balance. But
they always say that before you buy something, you should only buy it if you can buy it twice.
Yeah,
that's a good rule.
Well, I mean, look at
a great rule. And cash too.
Who's the guy in the news right now? The lawyer down in the South. He's on trial for murder and stuff, and his son.
The
Murdochs, right? You know, he has.
Don't ask me.
You know, you ever heard of this guy?
No,
he is his family is.
Think he did it?
I forgot what the case is, but
did he do it?
He probably did do it. But the case I'm trying to make is that his family has a bloodline of judges and successful lawyers, and his grandfather, great grandfather, was the first judge in his family and built it from nothing, and being handed down. You're just used to that power, that level of money, and you're like, whatever, I can do the fuck I want. I don't have to learn from the bottom. And his whole family empire is crumbling now because of all the stupid decisions that he made. But unless we're done with this conversation.
No, I'll add one thing before you ask the question is you were talking about how a lot of the 66 or 70, we'll call it 70% of millionaires are self-made. And I would actually argue that a lot of people will say self-made, but in reality, nobody is self-made because you've learned something from somebody along the way.
Yeah.
That you read a book that somebody wrote, whether it's like, let's say you read Think and Grow Rich from Napoleon Hill and you applied the principles to become a millionaire. You weren't self-made. You had help from Napoleon Hill, right? Or if he
was a mentor,
right? He was your mentor.
An author could be a mentor.
You were a coach, right? You were in sports, and you learned certain skills and certain mindsets from sports to become a successful millionaire. You weren't self-made. You took what you've learned from this coach and applied it to reality. So a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm a self-made millionaire." Nobody's a self-made. Everybody has help. Some people have financial help, whether it's an investor from somewhere, right? You started a business and you got $100,000 investment from some bigwig to start your business, or you read a book, or you had, let's say you started a business or T-shirts, and you your first sales were getting a print-to-made shirt where you utilized a company that printed the shirts for you and you would sell them on your website. You had help from the print shop. Yeah. If that print shop didn't exist, you wouldn't have made your first shirt. So everybody says, like, I'm a self-made, but the point is utilize and recognize these opportunities and the help and the mentorship that you can get from all these different places and apply it to whatever the avenue that you're going down, right? So everybody says self-made. I would argue that they've gotten help from one way or another, from a book, from a friend, from some company, whatever the case may be. But that was the only thing I want to add. So Eric had a question.
Unless you wanted to say something.
It's so crazy that Justin is bringing that up, that addendum about like, giving credit where credit's due and, nobody's self-made. I love that he brought that up because I'm thinking in my head while you're talking, I'm like, I wouldn't be here. You asked me about like the coaching and then I'm talking. I wouldn't be here without the coaches I've had. I've had mentors who've supported me tremendously, emotionally, skill-wise, physically, in all different ways. And I've had several coaches over the years, like my college coaches. I wouldn't know about the way how to run a program or how to do the skills and drills without them. My high school coach for believing in me, right? Like I wouldn't be where I'm at in life if it wasn't for the coaches I've had, and I wouldn't have the career I have if it wasn't for those mentors. And then it was just maybe the coaches we just interacted on the way to the bathroom at the tournament, and just quick brushing of shoulders. But point is, I have to I'm sitting here as the expert, as the authority in the wrestling, but realistically, I wouldn't be in this position if it wasn't other people who believed in me. And then that's why when other coaches reach out to me on social, like I'm so apt to help them. And maybe they say it's wrong. I give away too much stuff for free, but like I don't see it that way because I'm trying to help them, and I'm a big believer in it'll help me and it'll come full circle. Yeah. So just wouldn't be here without them. You need good mentors. You need to be coachable, and then it just ties back why the sports are important because I wouldn't have this attitude without, one, fitness, learning, and that's a whole nother avenue, being a workout person, being into training, and then also coaching and being coachable and being humble enough to receive. So I think it's very important to not.
Most definitely.
It's too much ego. Too much ego. Ego is good to a degree. You need to have confidence. You need to have self-belief, but you also need to understand that people are bigger, better, smarter, faster, and we're not the only people who've done wrestling or, cigar. We need to be able to accept it.
You gotta be a sponge.
You gotta
be, like you said, you gotta be coachable. I think, I don't like to talk about myself too much, but I can say one trait about myself that I know is I'm always willing to lend an ear, always willing to learn, and just be a sponge. Because obviously I don't, just like everyone in this room, we don't know everything. So when someone knows something, I take what I can learn from, and the other stuff I can just put to the side. But my question kind of goes to, what we're talking about right now is, you're coaching these kids in a very influential state, 18, 19, 20, 21. And we talk about this, how society teaches these kids. And what I'm already going to ask. But, what's the talk track? How do you mold these kids with, they already think they deserve everything. They already have this ego like, I'm the best. I deserve it all. I don't have to work as hard because, I'm this guy. This is his moment right now.
There's a lot. This is a loaded question.
Where I'm not even going to ask the question.
You say, how do you do it in today's world?
Yeah.
Like we talked about technology already, social,
especially with like kids, like with participation and volunteer trophies and kind of being a little bit softer as when we grow up. How do you get these kids?
You only get the fucking award if you win.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'll let the audience.
That's it.
I think it's important that the people know that I completely disagree with that entire thought process, and
which is what
the participation trophy.
Yeah. We all disagree with that.
So I just want to make that clear, because I need to take a stand on that whole. The reason why wrestling is great is it's meritocratic in nature. The reason why it's such a wonderful sport is it's meritocratic, and it's also for everyone. Size, weight, background, doesn't matter. It's who's the best at that weight, and that's what makes it so awesome. And the people who buy into it, and the fans and the coaches, because we see that, and that's why we love about it. It's like it doesn't matter. So it's a super cool aspect. So you're talking about coaching kids today. So I always say this to all my coaches and all my colleagues and people basketball, golf, whoever. We have a very tough job. coaches today are in a very, very peculiar situation. We have a very hard road to toe. We are going uphill. We are going uphill. So you need to go into it understanding that everything we're preaching and trying to reinforce goes exactly against what society reinforces and preaches. So I always start off with a disclaimer. I tell them, you need to know this, that delaying instant gratification and, being responsible on social media, understanding that what you do has an effect, and all of these things we've covered in this podcast, we're trying to teach through sport. So understand that we're going to have a tough job. All right. So first things first, we are big, and every program I've been a part of is we greater than me. Very cliche. We all know it. We used to do it in 2008. You have to get them to buy into us as a family and as a unit. And you'll notice this generation and people today are very big on causes, right? Very big on social causes. So if you can convince them everything we've believed in sports, which is true, how this is going to help you in life and not just in the moment to win or to win a game. If we could teach you the bigger picture, they're going to buy in more so, because this is a generation that really wants to be behind things that mean something. So if we could show them that wrestling is an avenue to improve your life and improve you as a person, and we build that we family, it will help mitigate a lot of what you were talking about, the entitlement and the narcissism. Because here, remember, we're solution oriented. I could sit there and complain, the kids, they're not like they used to be. But no, we're not going to give up. We're going to figure out a solution, and that is the solution. We're going to create a team culture. It could be basketball, wrestling, football, that this is a family, this is we are a unit. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from. We're going to put all that BS aside, and we are going to focus on the goal. The goal is to help you in our program win on the mat and in life. I, as a former D3 athlete, and as myself, listen, unless the kid goes, maybe he'll do the European thing, maybe really good wrestler as an MMA. Majority of kids are going to be going into the workforce. They're going to go into a job, most likely where we're located in New York City. They're going to work for a group, a company. They need to know how to work well with other people, right? So my goal as a coach in a Division III institution is to get them in a job placement, help them be a reference, help them succeed, and show them how this sport, ours is wrestling, it could be basketball, football, how this can help them in that regard. Because we have to think long term. And then we got to get the kids to buy in long term. So we brought up, that's the answer to the first part. How do we defeat the and it's true, the narcissism, the entitlement, the me. And then also, we brought it up earlier, these kids, we are all born after September 11th, okay? So they've lived in a world of a lot of fear and a lot of things like when I went to high school, we could leave the school whenever we wanted. It's a very different environment. So they are looking for a place that they could be safe in. So if you can create a basketball, football, wrestling where it's something they want to be a part of and they feel a part of it, we're getting even more bought in athletes. When we were athletes, guys like us, we didn't need that. But if we can create that, you're going to get you're going to get a super athlete because they love that vibe, as the kids would say, the vibe, the energy, whatever. But you create that atmosphere. You make this a place they want to hang out, the court, the wrestling room, and they really go. So you want to create that environment where it's like, oh, like I'm a person here. Like people care about me. Like cool.
You're part of something. Yep.
And I know there's a lot, and I obviously have a lot of thoughts. Because we're a podcast, because we're on social, because I'm on social. Like, remember the athletes you're coaching now. Everything is very superficial. You know, the likes, the comments. So if you can create as a coach, like a profound environment where those relationships, the friendships. We always had that when we were playing sports, but if we can, as coaches now, like really even up the ante, the kids are going to buy in. They're going to buy in even more so because they don't have it. Like when we were growing up, like we had a lot of distractions, like social stuff, go to the movies, go to the mall. These kids don't do that now. Nah. They're not doing, there's not as many. So if we can create like wrestling, for example, as the mall or the movies, we're going to have a powerful program.
That's a great point. A great way to look at it is you're creating something. No, you're creating something that people can be a part, because people want to be a part of something. They want to be a part of something bigger, right? So if you can create that environment for them, then it takes away from the negativity of the narcissism and the social aspect of I need to be on Instagram and get the likes from. No, I have the likes from my peers already in this environment that is going to excel me to someplace else versus the social media. But you brought up a good point of how, when we were talking about the participation stuff, right? How wrestling is a very, you had said the word meritocratic, right? It's
I never heard that word before.
like you get merits for if you win, you get an award. If you lose, that's it. Like if you're in a wrestling match, you don't get a participation award for losing.
I like
right?
that word.
It's not like I lost my match, I get no.
Meritocratic?
I think it's meritocratic or meritocratic, whatever.
What is it now?
A meritocracy, so it's like meritocratic.
So I actually relate that to golf, okay? Because
Love it.
I'm a big golfer now. I was, basketball. Now I play
Remember when Eric heated up on the back nine at the bachelor party?
I play a lot of golf. I play a lot of golf now. I was just at the simulator today. I play a lot of golf. But the point of that is, what I like about golf is there's no. So a lot of other sports might have some politics involved, right? In order to get to the NBA, right, you got to go through a couple. In golf, there really isn't. If you go out and you shoot 62, 3 round, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, nobody can say no, he's not allowed to play. If you go out and you shoot in the 60s, you're fucking playing. Like nobody can say you're not making it.
Yeah.
Right? If you're the best basketball player on the planet, right? You could your coach would be like, no, I don't like him. I'm not gonna let him come in because you're in golf. If you go out and win every fucking tournament you enter, you're
There's
in.
no denying.
There is no denying it. You're in. That's what I love about the sport is
It's a meritocracy.
you can't not get into the opens if you go out and you shoot 60s every round. You know.
Sure.
I really think that was one of the reasons why I liked the wrestling from the jump early on, like in high school. I really enjoyed the fact that there was like very minimal politics because if you're the best guy, you're going to wrestle, and if not, that's too bad. And there's no
you win, and you're in.
And
That's
at
it.
times, and that's really how I've lived my life, like consistently. I'm like a very I can be very binary. Like it's either you did it or you didn't, and it's like either this is the way it is, and that's it. And a lot of people will challenge me on that, and they find fault. But a lot of my success is based on that. So yes, is there downfalls? Sure. Can I improve? Always. But I think that in life, sometimes you need to be able to make a hard stand and not be afraid to do so, especially in today's climate. And you have to be like, this is fundamental. This is to me. This is my fact. This is fundamental to me, and you can't be easily swayed, right? We're talking about all these different things, but there's no like in wrestling. There's no like, oh, like your parents the coach, your dad's the coach, so like we're gonna start you as quarterback.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you lost in the wrestle off.
That's it.
Go to the.
That's it.
Maybe you'll get your chance if this guy gets hurt or you improve, but
if you win, you're in. That's it.
And that's really why I've stayed in the sport so long and I hear a lot. Like I have great friends, and maybe you guys know about this. Like I have 2 really close buddies. They're big into hockey, and they always try to tell me like, dude, you would love hockey. Like they're also guys who are familiar with wrestling, and they say there's a lot of this similar meritocratic, like very like. They just said I would love it and enjoy it, but I figured I'd bring it up on the podcast, a little hockey action.
Love hockey. Hockey's a great sport.
Always dabbled a little bit, like with.
Yeah, I played roller hockey growing up, but then being downstate in Long Island, it's not a very.
Yeah, it's not.
Speaking of Rochester, they love it up there. Dude.
All right, if I'd have grown up there, I probably would have stuck with hockey.
Yeah, They ice time. I used to work with one guy. He's like, I got to bring Johnny to get ice time, and I'm like, ice time.
Yeah, I used to work the
ice
games.
Cream, you mean?
I used to work the games. It was fun.
They would.
Great.
Yeah, they were like just
be
like
an announcer for the games.
They have like their own society, just like there's wrestling parents and basketball parents and football. There's these hockey parents, and I think it's awesome.
I used to love it. I used to announce for them.
That's
starting center number 42, Eric the Machine Joseph.
Would he be the Machine? You think?
I don't know, but I would do stuff like that. It was great.
Brother Cigar.
That's a good compliment, bro.
I used to do it all the time.
My last question to you.
Yeah, we're at an hour and 45 minutes. This will be the last.
Fuck yeah.
This will be the last question. So I gotta pee.
Mature audience.
We're gonna go off topic, but
sure.
What is it?
You gonna ask me about aliens or something?
Nah. What is it that you love about cigars? Why do you like cigars so much?
Yeah, leave it to the last question to finally talk about cigars.
What is it that you like about? Because that was one of the things that we instantly connected on. Growing up and knowing each other. But cigars is what like we always say, brought us together. So what is it that you like about cigars?
It's about all the things we talked about and basically what we've done here tonight. Cigars bring people together. There's the camaraderie factor. And you guys have done a great job like reinforcing that, especially like with guests and, the people that you meet and the people you bring on and the things you learn and the conversations you have. right? You could be having a cigar inside or outside. You can go from being complete strangers to best friends, and it relates to a lot of the stuff we talked about, isolation and the socials and things like that. You could really build a relationship over a cigar very similarly as you can on the court, on the field, or on the mat. Like it's a brotherhood, it's a bond, and it's just like golf in that way too. But there's something that I think makes cigars a little bit more special. And we could probably go into like a lot of the different ways why, but like I was just watching the centenarian thing, like the 100-year-old. That's great on Netflix, by the way, if you guys want to watch it. But cigar smoking and I think it's more of the outside element factor and just being within nature, and also I've heard you guys say the consumable art.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just breaking down, chopping it up, talking shop over a cigar. I mean, you go into a cigar lounge, right? You don't know anybody. You're in Dallas. I'm throwing cities out. You're in LA, Miami. All of a sudden, you go into the cigar shop, right? New in the city, you just got there. Maybe you have to go there for work. Maybe it's a wedding. You'll make 3 friends. 3
100%.
dudes. You got their contact. They're on social now.
100%.
Maybe they're not best friends, but it's a great way to meet other like-minded, successful people. And I know that we need to get away from the vilification and the demonization. And a lot of the times you guys talk about listen, I work with youth. Very rarely is there a child going to utilize nicotine through a cigar. Can we just dispel that myth? They're going to go do
preach.
This needs to be known. It's a luxury item. It's for adults. It's usually for people who are going to be professional, and they're not utilizing a cigar in a way that a cigarette or a vape would. It is a special celebratory thing, and I just got it from day one with cigars. Like cigars, they just make sense, man. And it's
preach.
Couldn't say any better.
And I think the last thing with the wine, we're talking about the DOCG and things. Life is meant to be enjoyed, and you got to be able to take the edge off, and you got to have things that it's okay, but always, as long as you keep your other stuff in check, life is meant to be enjoyed. And maybe that would be another podcast where we could talk about a little bit of managing time, busyness, right? We're a little too busy.
That'll be a part 2.
Yeah. You guys,
yeah.
And you probably, if going to Italy, you noticed, right? Because we've traveled to Italy a lot, my fiance and I. It's just the lifestyle that we need to incorporate that stuff over here.
Yes.
So
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Life. I've always said that life is meant to be enjoyed, not just endured. Okay, you're supposed to enjoy life, and the little things like the drinking the wine, the smoking the cigars, those things take the edge off. They relax you. They bring you together. They bring you closer to other people, and that's what life is all about. Life is meant to be enjoyed. Life is meant to be shared with other people. Humans are not meant to be in isolation, and these things bring people closer together, and that's the beautiful thing. So
couldn't say it better myself, gentlemen. I think that's a perfect way to end it. So
absolutely,
Nick Coco, Coach Coco, we appreciate you coming on here, brother. It was a real pleasure to have you on and kind of chop it up over a cigar about the wrestling world, about mindset, about what you do over a cigar, over some wine. So if there's anything that you'd like to say regarding plugging away, where people can find you, your social media, the red carpet is yours. Just shamelessly plug it away. Let people know.
Yeah, I'm just really grateful for being here and being in the studio. You guys built a wonderful place here. The energy is great. Thank you again. Find me on Coach_Coco_. That is my coaching page. I also, same thing, YouTube, Coach Coco. So a lot of the content that I post on Instagram will be on YouTube, vice versa. I'm doing a lot of polls, different things through YouTube now. So you can find my email. All my contact is essentially my Instagram, Coach_Coco_ is my business card. So if there's any way you have an athlete or a team that's struggling with mindset or performance, send me a DM. We can set up a free consultation right away, no charge, and then we can get you to where you need to be, strength and conditioning wise, mental performance wise, or just you want to have a conversation. So if you or your kid or somebody is struggling, mentally or physically, like I have the appropriate channel. I can get them and get you in contact with who you need to. And if you want to find me, that's where to go.
That's where it's at.
Coco.
All right. Well, Eric, send us off with what's on his shirt.
Gentlemen, ladies, and gents, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Nick, we appreciate you, Alan, brother. Cheers. Chin chin. Salud.